Hey guys, what's up? Hunter Vic with DragTheBar.com, and this is part 2 of our heads-up match with Luke 15. And I'm just gonna jump right in. Hopefully you've seen part 1. If not, go check it out because in this part we are going to be putting all of our reads that we got in part 1 to work. Okay, so we remember that this guy has been starting 3-bet a little bit more. He has shoved over my one and only 4-bet. And we generally haven't really had a hand to really fight back against him. In fact, most of my hands have been pretty trashy, not even good enough to call or float with. So I'm just kind of, just staying down, staying patient, just staying tight. And he's chipping up on us, but again, it's just how it goes sometimes. So I don't really feel like I've misplayed any big hands in this match or anything like that. But I did get caught bluffing twice for a couple of pretty big pots, so that was part of the problem. Alright, so this hand is interesting. He's now 3-bet me for like the third time in 4 or 5 hands, so I'm going to float this one. It's got some connectedness. I'm not going to wait forever, and I'd rather float this hand than 4-bet it. Because then it's going to force him to make a hand, and he can't rebluff me pre-flop. So I flop a gut shot, not a bad result, and there's a lot to be said for just checking here. There's a lot to be said for betting here. I think if he missed, I can take it away from him. However, I think that the only real post-flop 3-bet pot we've played, he got real tricky with it, and I think this guy, when he checks, I think that he's going to check and call a decent amount of the time with even something like an ace-9 even type hand. So I don't know how much fold equity I'm going to have if I bet, but I do know if I check to control the pot, I can take the pot away from him on the turn of the river when he's missed. So I really thought that checking was the best play because I could get more fold equity later in the hand. So that was my thinking there. So I check back and a king shows up. Not the best card ever, but remember we did catch him 3-betting me with 6-9, and he did not 3-bet ace-jack. So we got to remember that his 3-betting range is heavily weighted toward garbage, frankly. And if he's not 3-betting ace-jack, he's probably not 3-betting ace-queen. Maybe ace-king, we don't know yet. But the possibility exists he's not 3-betting ace-king. So he's got a lot of garbage. So that's really important to keep in mind here. And that's why when he bets this turn, I decided to float him. Because by floating, I can very cheaply represent a hand here. If I raise, then he has caught me bluff raising in the past. So if I raise, I'm afraid that I won't be representing nearly as solid a hand as I would be if I just called. So my plan at this point is to call the turn to rep a hand, and then if he checks it on the river, I'm going to bet and hope to take the pot down. Now the ace shows up. I think it's a really, really good card for me, and I think it's like the perfect bluffing card because I don't think he has many aces in his range at all. We got to remember he didn't 3-bet ace-jack. So once he 3-bets, I think that a lot of his aces are out of his range, and when this ace rolls off on the river, I think I can't ask for a better bluff card. So I do follow through, and I need to make it pretty decent. I don't want him making a hero call. So I make it 30, pretty convincing. And he folds pretty quickly, so it worked out. But I think it's important to think about the fact that against weak players, they don't like folding on the flop, but they can fold later in the hand. So you can often get a lot more fold equity late in the hand than you can early in the hand. Simply because there are no cards to come, they can't peel. Alright, so flop top pair, real drawy board. So I make a slightly bigger than normal continuation bet. Bet 5 into 6, and he calls. Turn the 2 pair, and pretty standard lead out here. Or excuse me, pretty standard double barrel. I would probably never check this back, but never check it back on the turn. I just think that I'm ahead way too often. So he checks the river, and I don't think I can bet here. I don't think this guy is not a big show, not huge on showing things down. So it's like once there's a 4 straight out there, not to mention the 3 flush, I don't think that he's gonna call me with like a single pair of 8s. He might call me with a weaker 2 pair maybe, but I think that he's gonna fold a lot of those hands. So I think I'm really only getting called by better hands. It would really there are just so few second best hands he'll call me with. So I decided to just check back. And a 7 is definitely in his range, by the way. And then he hit his gutter ball in the river, which was unfortunate. But he was he was probably I'm sure he was planning on just checking and calling, because this guy would not be making a shove there on a flush board. That's just not his deal. So I just think that the 7 is in his range when he checks and calls that flop, and then all the other reasons. So I think it's a good check back. All right, so here I'm just gonna double barrel. I mean, on a board like this, he's going to float like every single overcard hand that he has. So I think it's pretty standard to just float here. Excuse me, pretty standard to double barrel, because this guy likes to draw to his overcards out of position. And we take it down, so that's cool. Jack is a good card too. Mostly because in case he has like a hand like pocket 5s, it's an overcard, but it doesn't hit like his Broadway range like super strong, maybe not as strong as a king, because he's not going to float a hand like Jack 7, but he might float a hand like King 8, just because the king is so much higher. So he 3-bets me with Jack 5 offsuit. Not really a surprising piece of information. We already have his 3-betting range narrowed down to like 95% trash. So I do love it when I do love it when they show you their bluffs, though. It's just so good. So again, we haven't seen anything in the last 5 minutes or so that has really changed our opinion of this guy. I think our reads are pretty firm at this point. Just that his raises are very polarized and heavily weighted toward air. His 3-bet range is very heavily weighted toward garbage. And we just know that he plays his big hands passively and his bad hands very aggressively. So it's pretty easy. All we have to do is, just play accordingly. So, case 5 opens. He actually calls this one. And I bet for value in this flop because I know he's going to call me with his, Broadway cards, what have you. Other ace highs for sure. King I thought was a good card to keep barreling. I think it's pretty obvious. I can maybe get rid of an ace high, maybe get rid of, if I'm lucky, get rid of like pocket 6s. So I decided to just keep betting. I'm also chopping it with other aces now at this point, so that's okay. I can't like value cut myself. And so now I'm just at this point, he doesn't have a 4. Now I'm just like hoping maybe he does something dumb and folds here. I'm kind of free rolling on his fold equity at this point. By the way, I think it's a pretty slick play for him to shove there. Not that I ever think this guy would, but if someone tries that against you, shoving there is kind of cool. Okay, so we get another nice hand in the big blind. Most of our good hands have been, in the small blind. Most of our hands have been on the button. So not a board I really like to see bet. I think we're just getting called by a crazy combination of hands. So I just check this one back. We turn the ace, so good result. And I just bet a little bit bigger here just because with all these draws and all these pair plus gut shots that he can have, I just think he's calling me just so often. But he just folds. So 3-bet my jacks. Haven't really had many quality 3-betting hands, and he called the last one, so I'm kind of hoping he calls this one. Flop a nice hand, top pair plus the open ender. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how this guy's he's just not making many moves at the pot out of position. He's just calling a ton of hands in the big blind and just check folding. It's just a pretty ideal opponent. Okay, so we flop our flush draw. This is kind of an interesting hand, actually. So he check calls here, and from what we've seen in the past, that means he has a pair, because he would never check raise an ace. And I decided to double barrel, just to try to get him off of like an 8, because we know when he peels the flop, he can do it with like just a pair. And I've had a lot of success double barreling him, so I decided to fire. And again, like I talked about in the first part, when you fire the turn with like a strong draw, like a flush draw, it's really hard to be putting your money in bad, unless you get check raised. So, and even the times you do get check raised, I think the rest of the time it's so profitable that it doesn't really even matter the times you do get check raised. So, it's my standard thing is just to keep firing, stay aggressive. So this is really strange, actually. So he check raises the turn. This is the very first time we've seen him do this. So I didn't know what to make of this. Honestly, I thought he had a big hand at this point, like a 2-pair or maybe even a set, but I just hadn't seen him done that. All of his moves had been on the flop. And I think he has figured out that his moves haven't really worked. Well, the 2 times he's check raised the flop, I have 3-bet him and he's folded. So now maybe he's trying the same thing on the turn. I wasn't too sure, but so I looked at this. Because we were a little bit deep, I think I can call here profitably. I'm calling 20 to win 60 in direct pot odds. So I'm getting 3 to 1. I'm going to hit this draw 5 and 1. He has me covered. So there's another $100 I can win if I hit my flop. If I hit my card. And considering that I'm putting him on something big here, I think I can definitely make that money back. I definitely think that my implied odds allow me to call here. So I went ahead and made the call. I wasn't happy about it, but I think calling's much better than folding. I think I just have too much equity, and the stacks are just not shallow enough for me to just fold here. And because I think he has something big, I thought I could definitely get paid. Okay, so I'm thinking about it. Not happy, but I think it's the right play. So I call. And a deuce rolls off. And he checks it. So now I'm really confused. I'm like, what on earth is this guy doing? Because no legitimate hand that check raises that turn is going to check this river. It's just there's not one hand that would do it. It makes no sense. If he had a set, he would have a boat now. He's never checking that. He's never going to check 2-pair. All of his 2-pairs are still good. I mean, the deuce changes absolutely nothing. So when I see this, I'm like, well, I guess he's bluffing. I mean, what else can he be doing? Because he would have bet. He would have shoved. Like, I have exactly a pot bet. He would have shoved everything, every legitimate hand. So the question now is, how much we have to bet something. There's no way I'm going to check back with my 10 high and let his queen 7 win this hand. The pot is just way too big. I think we absolutely have to bluff. So my thought process here was, so the question is how big do we size it? So I was thinking about shoving, and then I was like, well, wait a second. So in case he does have something, the times he has nothing, I think that I don't have to bluff a whole lot because he's going to fold. because it looks like I have a hand. I mean, I have a hand that's essentially at the bottom of my range that would call this his turn check raise. Like, this is like one of the worst hands I could have that would call that turn check raise. So when I call it and he checks, I think he's putting me on having a hand, and it looks an awful lot like he's giving up. So if in the times that is not the case, in the times where he actually does have a hand and he checks it, shoving is simply going to be throwing money away. So I don't, but he's going to be folding all the times when he doesn't have anything. So I don't need to bluff very much because he's always folding when he has a hand, and he's always calling or check raising when he does have a hand. And we've already discussed how I don't think he has anything very often at all here, or he would have already shoved himself. So we only have to bet, like, I think I bet $25. I bet $21. And that's just all I have to bet here. I don't need to shove this river, just because we've got the situation narrowed down where he almost never has anything, but the times he does, he's never ever folding. So we might as well just bet really small because he's always going to fold when he doesn't have a hand. So that's what I do, and he folded pretty quick, 20 into 75. So a very profitable bluff, and fortunately that one worked out pretty well. All right, so we call the 8-9 in the big blind. I decided to just lead out here. I think leading is important, and because we know that this guy doesn't c-bet very often. And we also know he doesn't peel real light. Well, I take that back. He can peel light. But by light, I mean like a pair. He's not going to peel that with like 8-9 for a gut shot. He's not going to peel that with like a single 10. Well, he might peel the 10. But more importantly, that board is pretty scary, and if he doesn't have something on that board, he's folding. He's never making a move on it, ever. He's not going to float me. He's not going to raise me. Well, he might raise me, but I'm going to win the pot a lot, and I'm going to know when he doesn't have anything because he'll raise me. It's when he calls me that I need to decide it's when he calls me that's when he has a hand. All right, so I raise up my ace jack, and he's been folding a ton of my leads, by the way. Fold versus donk bet's 100%, and we're 130 hands into this match. Okay, so he's still folding to quite a bit of 3-bets. So nice dry board. Obviously, we're going to fire. And we check back. It's like when he just calls, I think that I might get him off a 7, but I think compared to the flush draws and the queens, I think the 7 is not a huge part of his range. And the 10, when the flush draw gets there, it's like I'm just going to give up. But then he checks the river, so now I'm thinking like maybe he did have a 7, because wouldn't a queen or a flush bet the river? So now I decide to bet. I think it's a pretty good spot for it. So then he check raises me on the river, and at this point I'm thinking like, all right, he started off check raising the flop, that didn't work. Then he check raised the turn once, and that didn't work out for him. So now he's check raising the river. So I'm not like, I actually thought about calling here, but then I was just like, screw it. I just don't think it's. I definitely don't think it's. I definitely think he has a flush often enough, but, or maybe he even has a 10. I don't know. I didn't want to make a king high call right there. It would kind of let him back into this match, and plus I just don't think it was plus VB. It's possible he's check raise bluffing the river, but that is not a move that many weak players have in their arsenal. It's just it's rare for even good players. So I just don't see it happening. Although we have to assign there is some level of probability that he was doing that, but that's okay. I'm willing to give him that one. It was if he was bluffing me there, then good for him, good bluff. I didn't have a whole lot to really do anything about it. All right, so okay. Not playing the old 3-5. Okay. So again, I mean, as you can see, he min raised that one. I really wonder what that meant. I did not take him up on it with my king 3 offsuit. That was the one and only min raise in the entire match, though. Okay, so call with our deuces. And this is just a standard check fold. I think it's actually a pretty decent board to lead out on occasion with deuces, but he just doesn't see bet often enough to even think about making a move there. Okay, so standard C bet. I decided to double barrel here. I think that I'd like to get him off a 7. I'd like to get him off some sort of under pocket pair, like 8s or 6s. But he keeps calling me. So I thought the river was really interesting because all the draws missed. You know, he could have 8-9, he could have like Jack 9, he could have a flush draw. So of all those hands, we know he's always going to call with a 7. He's always going to call with a 10. So the question here is, what hands are we bluffing against? And of those hands that he missed, so we have to think of his range that does not consist of 7s or 10s. So we have like 8-9, we have like Jack 9, we have all the flush draw hands. I think we beat enough of them that we can just check back here. The only hands we'd really be bluffing against are an ace high flush draw and a king high flush draw. The rest of them we beat because we have the queen, and we beat 8-9 and we beat like 8-6 and Jack 9. So I think I don't think there are enough hands that we need to fold out that I don't think there are enough hands that we need to fold out to make betting a necessity here, if that makes sense. We don't need to bluff here because there just aren't that many hands that we need to fold. It's just ace high and the king high flush draw. So I just check this one back because I can just show down against 8-9 and the other missed draws and have fold equity. So I thought about bluffing and then, thought about his range a little bit more and what it consists of, and we do just take it down with queen high, which is cool. And he did have 8-9, so we just beat way too much of his air on that river to warrant a bluff. So okay, not gonna play the old 10 deuce. So we're chipping back up on him a little bit at a time. A lot of heads-up matches, stacks fly back and forth, but a lot of them are like this too, where it's a lot of small plots, a lot of small pots, a lot of well-orchestrated, thoughtful decisions and careful moves. That's definitely been more what this one has been. I prefer to play a match like this because it's frankly insanely profitable and incredibly low variance. So opponents like these can be very, very good to be playing. It's not particularly sexy or crazy, but we're gonna end up beating this guy for a huge win rate, and that's what we're trying to do here. So I make kind of a loose peel. I make a loose call in the small blind or in the big blind, mostly simply because I was tired of folding. I haven't played many hands It's suited. It plays decently post flop, and you know, I think this guy has been fit or fold enough that I can start playing a few extra hands in the big blind because I think I'm able to take my share, more than my share of pots from him. Because most of my moves have been working. He folds to all my donk bets. I just think I can start opening it up a little bit at this point. None of my moves work here though, and by the time this river shows up, I'm just check folding. It's just no way that hand is good ever. So that's okay. The key is that you're willing to like donk out there. I mean, it was basically a semi bluff, leading out with bottom pair, because it's far superior to checking and calling. All right, so I'm looking to. I decide not to see bet here. I just check it back. I mean, my ace high is good a lot. It has showdown value, but I can't really value bet the ace three. So he calls, and I hadn't done a lot of checking back because I've been c-betting like a madman. So I didn't really know what to think of his turn bet. I thought maybe it was just air. Fact is, I don't really have much of a read on that particular move because I've rarely checked the flop back. So I just call because I think he's probably bluffing a decent, often enough, and I do have my gut shot and my overcard. He's got five, so it's like, all right, whatever. Good job. My ace high is no good. If I were him, I would have thought about betting that river too. It looked a lot like, my hand looked a lot like ace high. I probably would have just folded the river, actually, by the way, from this guy. Okay. So standard on the flop. He folds again. But yeah, just when people fold to more than half of your c bets, just be relentless and just raise every button, c bet almost every flop, and don't stop doing it until they force you to adjust by check raising lots of flops or three betting you lots pre-flop. Until you're forced to adjust, just keep doing it. All right, so tens, excellent hand. We are going to three bet that every time. And he calls me. So not exactly the flop I'm looking for, but not horrible either. I mean, I haven't really three bet a lot, so I expect to get some credit here when I bet out. So make my standard continuation bet. And this is a really important decision. He raises. I want you guys to pause it right now and think about what you would do here. Everything we've seen from this guy. All right. So now I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I've seen from this guy. Hopefully, you thought about it a little bit and came to a decision, and maybe it'll line up with mine. We've seen this guy be incredibly passive with top pair hands. He's checked and called big aces out of position. He's checked and called other top pair hands. But we have also seen him bluff raise at least 3 times in the course of the match, and on all 3 of those check raises. So he's raising me here. I have to think that if he had an ace, he would be calling, because he's either afraid of his kicker problem or he wants me to keep bluffing. So when he raises here, he is representing pocket sixes, and that is it. He doesn't have ace king. He probably would have, if he had ace king, I don't think he would raise it here. I think he would slow play it. I think he would probably just jam it pre-flop, by the way. And he definitely doesn't have aces or kings because he would have done the same thing with those. So if he actually had an ace like ace 10 or ace jack or ace 9, he's never raising here. It would be completely inconsistent with everything we've seen from him. So that just means he's bluffing. Even if he had sixes, I doubt he would raise them all that often. So he is bluffing here a tremendous amount of the time. Like 95% of the time, he's just flat out bluffing. So that means that we only really have one play. We're not folding here because our read is too good and too strong and backed up by way too many examples. So the move here is to jam. And he folds very quickly. So, I think that's the absolute right play against this guy in that spot every single time. He's just done absolutely nothing to be aggressive with any sort of legitimate hand at any point in this match. Okay, so we make our standard C bet. He folds. I actually thought about. I almost did live commentary with this, but I've tried doing live commentary with heads up videos in the past, and it's really challenging because often you can't go into any amount of detail in hands that legitimately warrant a lot of detail, simply because you have to get to the next hand so quickly, and there's no downtime at all. So, just want to throw that out there. I have tried to do it though. All right, so here what I'm thinking is I make a huge 3-bet here because I think that he's probably a little irritated that his big bluff didn't work 3 hands ago. And I don't want to make a normal C-bet because I don't really want him to just call. I kind of want him to just jam or fold here because I think he's in a place mentally where he can jam a hand like Ace-6 or King-7 or something like that, or even King-10. I'll flip with him right here for sure. So, but he just folds. So I wanted to give him a chance to make a huge mistake there. So that's why I made a bigger than normal 3-bet. When I think people are getting frustrated, I like to give them opportunities to make big mistakes because they will bite on it way more than you would guess. Okay, so I turned some showdown value. That's really all that 5 does for me. I don't think I can bet against an ace high. I don't think he's going to call 2 streets with an ace high, so I decided to check it back. I just don't know what I'm going to get value from. He's always going to call with a 6. And then on the river, I decided to get cute and fire 5 into 15 or 14, simply to attempt to get value from like ace high. But he has the same hand. I love his pre-flop. Excuse me, I love his flop call, by the way. That's truly expert. Okay, so I just made a pot 3-bet here just for stack sizes. Yeah, I actually want to make the pot a little bit smaller because with his $60 stack, it's going to be a little awkward if I inflate this pot too much pre-flop because it's going to give him the ability to just jam and have a pretty good. He's going to have a good stack size to jam on me at any point post-flop. So I made it a little smaller. All right, so he checks back on this board. I think I'm getting called on a board like this a lot because it's so connected. So I just check it, but then he checks back. So now I think that I need to just take a stab at this. I'm open-ended, and I think I take it down a lot right here. If he didn't want to bluff at the flop, I think I can just take it from him on the turn. Okay, so we stick with the game plan. Fire. And he check raises here. So at this point, this is kind of an interesting spot. You can think about this one, but think about why it's different than the last one. And what I thought here was that I know he doesn't have an ace. I know that. My concern is with this board is that I think he could definitely have a flush draw. I think he could definitely be going nuts with like second pair. And if he has a flush draw or a pair, I'm in bad shape because a lot of his flush draws have a higher card than my 10. And I definitely think he's capable. I think he's capable of bluffing with like second or third pair. I know he doesn't have top pair, but I also think if I jam with this stack size, he's got like 40 or 50 bucks left. I think he's definitely going to call, partly out of frustration. So, and if he has a draw, then he's never folding anyway. So, I think it's a spot I just have to let it go, even though we know his hand's not that strong. I just think that when we get the money in, I'm never going to be in very good shape. So, I just decided to let this one go. Yeah, he's only got 40 left. I really don't see him folding to a jam. And then it also feels like, he wants me to. It almost feels like he wants me to jam there because he's learned his lesson about raising me. So I don't see him. And we do know that he is capable of taking a past line and applying it to a future hand, like he did with that when he came over the top of my my 4-bet, because I saw him show down 6-9 offsuit that he 3-bet. So I didn't want to play into his little game on that one. All right, so we fold that standard. Okay, so sevens. No, we don't get to play him. He's still playing more hands in the big blind than on the button. Now, at this point in the match, I feel like I have a good enough handle on this guy that I can start calling weak aces. I know I said in part 1 that you always want to be kind of turbo folding these hands. The one exception would be once you're late into a match and you know your opponent's tendencies very, very well, like we do with this guy. So then you can open it up and play a hand like this simply because you know what he's going to do and you're going to know how to respond on different board textures. And that's going to help negate your positional disadvantage. So, something to keep in mind. I float the flop because, frankly, because my ace high, my ace 6 is the best very often. He checks back here, and I just check it to him. I can't really value bet. I just kind of hope he does something, and he checks ace 5, and my ace 6 takes it. That was kind of cool. I'm sure that kind of irritated him a little bit, which is nice. I bet here simply to just win the pot, basically. Or maybe he calls me with like king 5 again, which would be cool. But I don't expect him to fold an ace there. It's mostly just to take the pot and not give him a free shot at hitting his overcard or something like that. There's just really no reason for that to happen because I just don't expect him to bluff the river often enough to make a check back good there. So fold to his 3-bet. I mean, I'm going to need something. I'm willing to jam. At this point, I will jam any ace, any pair. Because we know his 3-betting range is mostly garbage. But I still need a hand I want to jam on, mostly because I think with the stack he has left, he's going to be calling at this point. He's not going to be folding. So I check my king 8, and I'm a little irritated that he checks it back, although I'm not surprised either. So I decided to bet 3 and mix it up a little bit. I thought he could interpret this as weak, and instead of my normal 4, I wanted to kind of give him a reason to do something crazy. Like if I bet my normal 4, I think he might just see my normal bet size and fold without thinking about it. But if I bet 2 or 3, then he might think about it, and then he might think about pulling out his bluff raise on me, which is obviously a great thing to have. That is the goal here. I mean, I don't think this guy. I know I have the best hand like a ton, so I want him to do this. So I tried to induce it, and it does work out. So then our decision on what to do with this raise, we can jam, 3-bet, call. We're not folding. So what's the best line, really? I mean, jamming, I think he's just going to fold all of his bluffs. So he's bluffing a ton. And the rare time he does have a better hand, we're just going to get it in bad. So I don't see jamming really being that great. I think we're way better off calling and then just letting him giving him another chance to bluff the river. And that's actually a really, I think the 2 is a really good card just because I think he's going to see the 4 straight and think that he can bluff me off of something. And that's just not going to happen very often. I'm just never folding this hand. But I mean, again, he's low on money and he's frustrated. The match hasn't been going his way. And he takes a stab at it. Can't really blame him. He has 10 high. I'd probably take a stab at it too. So ace king again for like the 10th time on the button, and for like the 10th time he just folds the flop. So now he's down to open shove mode, which is always cool. You gotta love that when you put somebody into open shove mode. That's just like one of the best things about heads up. Okay, so here I decided to make my $3 bet again just because it worked so well a few minutes ago. So I bet 3. I just snap call here. He's got me out kicked by a card, which is a bummer, but I think that's hands down the play. Never folding there to that. So he's doubled up. Good for him. And again, I'm not changing my strategy a whole lot at this point. I am going to be shoving like a decent range that figures to have good equity against his 3-betting range, which is made up of highly questionable hands equity-wise. So beyond that, I'm probably not going to make any huge bluffs either, just because by the time he raises me at any point with these stacks, that he's pretty much going to be committed. So I'm going to need something to get all in with him. So I'm kind of just treading water, picking up the small pots, waiting for that situation to show up. So like right here, if he 3-bet me, I would shove. Because if he's not 3-betting ace jack, then I'm never dominated. Unless he happens to have a pair. And you don't get dealt a whole lot of pairs pre-flop, so not worried about that either. So you see me I'm still folding like the worst of the worst. 2-9 off. Although it's still probably profitable when he's folding this many c-bets, but the point of this video is not to play the point of this video is to show you guys how to figure out how to take information early in a heads up match and use it later. I'm not trying to play a specific style at all. I'm trying to just play fairly tight, very very solid style of poker here. So I call here. The reason being is because if I 3-bet, I'm gonna have to shove every single flop, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But I think considering my edge on this guy, and considering that he's basically on the ropes and ready to spew it off, I kind of just want to make a pair, and I think this hand's gonna flop well, and then I can just get it in when I have something. Whereas I don't really want to have to get it in with king high or something like that and be in a real ambiguous spot. So here's a situation where I was very close to shoving on him. I did just talk about, but the reason I didn't is just the stack size is like I just talked about. If we were a little bit deeper, I could shove here, but I think that he's going to call me with everything. So I just don't know how much fold equity I have, so I had to just pitch it. And he does show me Jack 7. So I mean, obviously, we can be results oriented. I was surprised. He actually, I'm not gonna say surprised, but at the same time, it's a situation where I really didn't think I could do much about it at that point. But that's okay. I'm really not concerned about being able to finish this guy off at this point. Having said that, the board Queen 5-5 is so dry that he almost never has anything. So, I mean, shoving is probably the move, but I don't know. That was my game plan. I generally don't like, you also run a risk of doubling somebody up when you have them on the ropes here, and you're in control of the match. If you need to put in any cash poker, you need to push every edge available. But in a heads-up match, there is something to be said for not doubling your opponent up unnecessarily and letting him back into the match when you have him basically down like this. So, and it's a tough concept to apply, and I think a lot of people take it too far, but there is something to it. That right there was huge. All right, he did not three bet ace king. That is kind of like the last piece of the puzzle. Um, we were I was suspecting that he wasn't three betting it because because we saw him not three bet ace 10 twice and not three bet ace jack. So I knew it was possible, but that right there was so huge. Um, because now we know his three betting range is 100% garbage. That's like the final piece. So that just gave us a tremendous amount of information. Especially as a short stack. I mean, my God, his whole goal should be to get ace king in pre-flop. So that was just very, very nice. So after seeing that, I would play this guy just all day long until, you know, until he quit. Because that just tells us everything, and it applies to post flop too. All the post flop situations, like he either has the absolute nuts or he has nothing when he's raising. So obviously here I'd be getting it in. I decided to, decided seven deuce is good enough. This is pretty funny. He shows me his seven deuce too, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, I would have been calling that with a very wide range that would have crushed his seven deuce. I wish I had had something decent. So I get kings, and I'm like praying he does it again. So here I wasn't really sure what to do here. I thought this board was like primed for him to make a move. So I bet one, just hoping to induce something crazy. I probably should have bet two. I think one is a little obvious. I think one's just a little. I think it just shows what I'm trying to do. But if I bet two or three, I think he might bite. So I decided just to bet another one, just trying to give him a chance to do something, but he just folds. So 10-3, not gonna happen. Three seven, not gonna happen. Okay, so what do we get? We get fives here. And he calls. I think. Okay, after a while. Alright, so pretty good board for fives. And he checks. I decided to just bet pot because I wanted to inflate the pot a little bit and make it a little more attractive for him to make a move at. And he just shoves. So this is like a fist pump call after what we've seen, you know. And he's got queen seven, but he does hit on the turn, which is really unfortunate. That was kind of what the spot we've been waiting for, and then it goes his way, but that's all right. At this point, I feel like I have this guy so figured out that I'm just not concerned about it. And it's not like he's adjusted, He's played the exact same game for 200 hands. So, if he hasn't adjusted yet, I just don't think he's going to. So, with our understanding of this guy's game, we can just beat him for a very high win rate. Another nice flop. So I decided to barrel here. I think the king's a really good card to follow up on. I think it's gonna get rid of a lot of his flop calling range, and it does, which is cool. He does fold. Try my hand at the deuce seven one more time. This one's suited though. I will play an e2 suited on the button. Most of the time. All right, so we flop kind of an interesting board, 2-3-3, and I lead out, or excuse me, he checks, I bet, and he raises me. So it's like, does he really hit this board? I mean, come on. We know, you know. I don't need to go into the read again. You guys know what's going on. So I think shoving is just the play here every time. I think it's the same exact situation as the fives. You know, he has overcards just an overwhelming percent of the time. So I ship it, and he calls with ace-8. And this time we hold, which is cool. So that was the end of our match with Luke 16. You know, it's the kind of match where we won like a buy-in off of him, maybe slightly less, but you know, we beat this guy for. It took us 200 hands to win probably $80, and it seems like it took us forever to stack this guy. And this took me about an hour to play, but we beat this guy for like I think I beat this guy for 34 big bets per 100, poker tracker big blinds per 100. That's a huge win rate. That's significantly more than like, you know, the 6, 7, 8 standard heads up win rate. So I absolutely had a huge edge on this guy, and fortunately it went my way. But I definitely want. The reason I'm saying this is because, you know, sometimes you're playing a guy like this, and it feels like it's taking forever, and it feels like, you know, it's getting frustrated. You can't stack him, or it's just not going your way. And I guess my point is just that, you know, patience and a fundamentally sound, solid heads-up game is going to get you there, and it's going to take you very, very far. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, hit me up with any questions, and I will talk to you later.